Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 14 of HorseShow360 podcast. Thank you all for tuning in so far. I'm here joined with legendary course designer Guilherme Jorge. Um, this episode is all about course designers and why course designers are so vital and important to the equestrian world. So, Guy, thank you so much for joining me today. Have you ever been on one of these podcast things?
No, thanks for having me, Derek. I think I've been on live sessions, but that is named the podcast. No, I think it's the first one.
Cool. Well, we appreciate you coming on and
Thank you.
giving us a little bit of insight into what it takes to be a course designer and how it affects events, because we know it does affect events pretty dramatically. Give us a little bit of background on yourself. Obviously, you've course designed Olympics, World Cup finals, everything like that. Give us some background on what got you into course designing and kind of how it all started.
Very good. So I started riding at the age of 10 back in Brazil. I'm originally from Campinas, Brazil, and the riding club in my hometown, like the sport in Brazil, is mostly held on riding clubs. And the riding club at my hometown evolved to a big country club. My parents were members, but nothing to do with horses. And one day I was at the pool and I went to see the riding school ring. And funny enough, my first contact with the horse world was setting up a jump, because the instructor, the coach for the riding school, was jumping and he knocked the rail and there was nobody there to put up the jump. And they looked, there was this kid there and said, "Oh, can you come and put up the jump for me?" And I said, "Okay." I went there and I said, "Oh, you want to start riding?" So then I started riding at the age of 10 and I jumped only up to juniors, meter 30, meter 40 competitions. And my father was a human doctor. He was a OBGYN, and I was a kid that loved horses and the sport. And comes the age to choose a profession, I said, okay, logical thing is to go to vet school. So I went to vet school. I studied at a very good, one of the best vet schools in Brazil, and I graduated at the year 1990. And I practiced with sport horses till 1998. In the middle of it,
So you're a licensed veterinarian as well,
I,
or what
I,
was?
I was, yeah, yeah. I don't,
That's
since I
amazing.
moved to the US, I didn't kept my license, and it's been now 98. It's gonna be 27 years that I haven't practiced. So my wife for sure knows a lot more about what's current and what's going on with the vet practice. My wife's, as you know, a professional rider, so she's way more up to date than I am. But I always follow the sport. The city I went to college, they had one of the biggest hubs of show jumping at the time, that were like led by Victor Teixeira. He's the three-time Pan American champion. So, and at that time, he would have the best World Cup shows there. And
Where was
I
that?
was always, that's called Belo Horizonte. It's the capital of the state of Minas Gerais. And best, like he will have people from Europe coming to jump. Was very, so 2 times a year we always had like big shows, and I was always fascinated by those guys, like the way that the courses would go, and I always was always interested in it. So while I was still practicing as a vet, I started, like, I worked at a barn that would do a 1 day show every Thursday night, one evening of show jumping. And sometimes the professionals didn't want a course design. I would go there and do courses. And started, I think it was the year 1992 that I did what was the first show in my home club. And then I did, back then there was no course designers in the state of São Paulo, which is the richest one and had the best shows. In Rio, we had two very good course designers, one, Coronel Fonseca, and the other one is Hélio Pessoa. He's Rodrigo's uncle, Nelson's brother, and they were very good FEI course designers with a lot of background that were my initial mentors. And as much as I was a good vet and I liked being a vet, I found on course design is something that would give me even more action. Let's put it this way on the sport that I really loved. So I literally took any chance, anytime a course designer from abroad would come to Brazil, I would go and try to assist them. So Linda Allen, Leopoldo, Palacios, Olaf Peterson Sr., Arno Gego, everybody that will come to Brazil, I would try to go and assist. And with that, I landed up on Linda Allen's team for the Atlanta Olympics in '96. I went as a volunteer, but we had a really great team there, and we made a lot of connections. And I knew Pepe Gamarra, Jose Maria Gamarra. He lived many years in Brazil, and he was involved here in WEF. So first year I came to Wellington was 1999, to do the back rings. And then first time I did the main ring here was 2001. And like I said, it's something that really, like, was a fantastic way of being involved with the sport. And I took all the opportunity to learn, and to the little by little I start getting chances to do courses myself.
So it sounds like, um, from like you said, from like 92 to 96, and then from 99 to 2001 or 2, you said you did the main ring for the first time. It sounds like that was a pretty fast trajectory though for you to like the top level jump, course designing the the main ring in Wellington after only working the back rings or the other rings, like you said, in a couple of years. That's huge because usually it takes course designers a lot longer. So you clearly were noticed here as an extreme talent for it and given that opportunity, no?
I think it was a little bit of being on the right place at the right time. Like I said, in when I started uh, in Brazil, like I said, in São Paulo, they had big shows, but they didn't have a course designer. The professional riders would take turn. Oh, I'll do the course this weekend. I'll do the next weekend. So there was a lot of shows in need of course designing there. I think also being part of the industry, like understanding the sport, having ridden, and being involved with the sport, but at the same time being totally with no independent, with no conflict, because I was not a trainer, I didn't have customers, I didn't have anything. I think that helped. And of course, I think that the main driven force, and I compared this with my career as a vet. Like, I was a good vet. I would go to one congress or one meeting a year, but when I got to course design, I said, this is really interesting, and I really took every opportunity. So but I agree with you, and I think going to Atlanta in I mean, it all started on the Pan Am in '95. I went with one of Leopoldo's assistant. From there, I met Javier Fernandez from Mexico. I went to Monterey. Back then, La Silla would hold the biggest shows. They're back now, but back then was the Pulsar Crown. And with Linda Allen, I landed up in Atlanta. But like all this, I was very proactive. I would go and say, hey, I want to go and work at assistant. I will pay for everything. And
You vouched for yourself.
yeah, like it's not that, oh, I got all the invitations coming in. No, I go, and then I went to the institutions, like I went to the Brazilian Federation, and I said, hey, can you help me with the ticket? Or then the FEI has actually it's the IOC that has a solidarity program to form officials through the FEI. And I always try to get the institutions to help me, because I kind of feel that they have the obligation to provide that for the sport. And in this way, I was getting the help from the institution, not from a particular person, one or other person. So it was fast. Like my first World Cup show in North America was in Bromont in 1998. Then in 99, I came here to Wellington the first year, 99, 2000. Back then, we used to have to do the Nemeti and Mogavero rings at the same time. There was a lot of work. Luckily now you do
Imagine
one.
doing that
Yeah. Oh,
again
no.
today.
No, no, no. Now, for as long as I could, I'll try to do only one ring. It's really hard to do two rings at a time, and especially those two very busy rings. And yeah, no, I agree with you that it was fast in number of years, but I really threw myself into it.
Sure. Yeah, I think anybody that's good at anything is, um, no matter what sport, profession, anything. I mean, you got to have a little bit of restraint too sometimes because you want to get there as fast as possible and do the biggest things you possibly can. And one of the points you mentioned in the beginning was that I thought was pretty valid, that you transitioned from being a vet to um then being a course designer, and you really enjoyed being a course designer more, so you gave more of your attention to it. Um, but I also think that it plays such a big factor that the sport. I think you can tell in course designers, in my opinion, that are good and bad. The course designers that are best in the sport really know what they really know all the details, right? They know, not to mention just the materials that we'll get into later and stuff like that, but like the riders that are in those classes, what level you're building for and the type of people that are at the event that you're building for, and you have a huge background in the sport. So you understand what it takes, whether because you've been a rider in the past, some course designers were riders first and foremost. These type of things matter. Um, I just think it's not good enough just because there's kind of a shortage of course designers at a high level that, just anybody, just because you work at a horse show, your whole life or these kind of things, does that mean you should be a course designer? You really have to understand the sport to do course designing at a high level.
Yeah, so I agree with that. And even though I didn't have at all the writing experience that I wish to have had, uh, um, I think that would have been even great, even better if I had jumped like big classes and stuff. But I would always follow the top level sport. I was always fascinated by it. Like I was really trying to follow. Back then, there was no internet, no. You got a video was like it was the you got a World Cup final video, that was something fantastic, and we'll get together to watch. And uh, but but I always try to understand a lot of how the sport goes. I think that is very important. It's very important what you said, and it also goes with talent. You know,
Yeah. Like anything
uh,
else, if you're either
anything
good or
else,
you're not.
anything else. But no, but no, no, I don't really agree with you on that, because if we're gonna talk about the top level of any activity, yes. But I've seen course designers get better, and I've
Yeah,
seen
of
many
course.
riders that you say this guy is not a natural talent, and in the end, not only they start to get results, but you see that they really are riding better.
Well,
But
work ethic, in anything goes further than anything, so I totally agree with
absolutely,
you. But when you're
the
talking, like you
talent make a
said,
difference.
like, you can tell the ones that make it to the top, that really course designers that separate themselves, that are routinely, consistently producing a good job, and there's a lot of details that transition to that conversation,
Absolutely.
like, what does a course designer do to, help a rider and help a horse get security and grow and jump better as the course goes on or the week goes on? There's so many different details that contribute to the conversation of, is a course designer consistently talented in that way? And, um, you know, in the end, that's one of the main reasons why course designers are so vital to the equestrian world. In my head, you have a level of sort of importance of events that like make or break or shape an experience at a horse show. And in general, this podcast has been about like equestrian and horse show experiences, right?
Mhm,
Like what
mhm,
makes a good horse show, what doesn't make a good horse show, people, all the different aspects so far. And that's kind of what we've touched on to date. And I really truly believe that course designers can make or break a horse show. So there's only a few um officials and employees or whatever that work horse shows that you can say that from.
mhm.
A customer experience is everything. So the people that are working the events um, play a big factor, but you have management of a horse show can absolutely make or break a horse show. I think that that's number one. Most of the responsibility is on our shoulders to make decisions for everybody as a whole. So that's numero uno. But next come in my head comes two things and two versions of people that work events, and it's course designers and in-gates. I mean, those two roles at a horse show, really shape the experience of a competitor at an equestrian event. I mean,
Right.
if you have a talented as well, knowledgeable, friendly, um, forward thinking and somebody that can think way in advance and problem solve, you can be a great in-gate and you're organized, right? If you're a course designer and you make courses that are aesthetically pleasing, flowing, natural for the horses and riders, let them grow throughout the week and everything like that, they walk away with an amazing experience. The other things are kind of
Even though
like
they don't have a, even though they don't win or have a couple of rails, but if they had a good experience, that's okay.
good
They're happy.
experience. You're not injuring people with the difficulty of courses, depending on the level. Like so, courses that you and I have had conversations about this a lot,
Mhm,
and the value of course designers, um, comparatively to an event when it comes to and. You don't have to speak to this specifically. I'll just mention it. But salaries at a horse show, course designers are among the highest paid at events.
mhm,
I know for workload and everything like that, it's never enough, but I do think in general when it comes to, paying an official at a horse show, the course designers are rightfully so, almost paid more than anybody at
mhm,
an event
mhm,
because of that level of responsibility that you have and the course designers have to making a good experience and keeping horse and riders safe. And there's not many roles at equestrian events that can say that. So I think it's worth it. I think, salaries and everything like that, even though they've been going up with inflation and everything throughout the years, like course designer is one of those things where, um, you know, that's a non-negotiable for me, whether it be, if I have one of the best course designers in the world designing my events and they're like, Derek, I need to make this for this week. It's like, no questions asked,
Good too.
because I'm hiring you because you're experienced and
Of
everything. And that,
course.
you're going to laugh at that. I don't know if you want to respond to all that statement, but
No, but what I think there is that uh, our sport is evolving, and of course, in some countries more than others, to a very, very professional state. But it started as a volunteer event in most of the countries, and in most, like we're talking 50, 60, not even. Somebody asked me the other day, a writer asked and said, "Hey, 30 years ago, what the weight of the post was saying?" And I said, "Oh man, you're really making me feel old, because if we talk 30 years ago, it's not, for me, it's not that long ago anymore. But so 50 years ago, the sport was on volunteer basis, was a volunteer activity in many ways. So we're still transitioning, and I think that goes a lot with the how much the officials are paid at an event, because we are evolving. We are not, the industry is still not there yet. it reflects on how much money is there to be made by the show organizers itself. It reflects on the prize monies that the riders receive if you compare to other sports. Our sport is still growing up a lot on that direction, I think. But of course, I'm biased, but I do agree with you that the course designers played a very important role on an event. There's no doubt about
And
it.
it's surprising that, with that being said, like, I feel like maybe because there's so many more horse shows going on right now, but, the course designers at really the top level are very limited. The quantity of course designers that you have to choose from, which obviously increases a course designer's value, that there's not that many designing at such a high level, but, um, I do believe that, you know, there's a select few. I mean, I always say, you know, I have like 5, maybe 6 course designers that I really, really trust, at an event to, and I take that really seriously because, I mean, I've had events where the course designer has really, like, hurt people and affected people really negatively, and I was scared for a minute that people weren't gonna come back to my horse show because of how bad the course designing was and detrimental to it, and I think that it's really important for, you know, course designers that, like, maybe don't do a great job once in a while or these things, or that they're open to feedback and feedback from the riders, maybe the or organizing committee, these kind of things, because like I said, it just makes or breaks a horse show, and a bad course
Absolutely.
designer can really ruin a show. I mean, it just really can. I mean, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, and you never ruin a show. But I'm just saying,
We try
like,
bad days, but like
there are so many things, like, not only even things that people don't think about. Recently, I had a course designer who's very good course designer, but slowed down the horse show. I mean, a lot of times, especially at a big horse show, when you're not rushing, but you need to stay on schedule and everything like that, the way a course designer goes through his routines, setting the courses, setting the poles, um, working with the jump crew, things like this, an extra 30 minutes between rounds, let's say, can really affect the exhibitor experience because all of a sudden you have 5 classes or 6 classes in an arena, and that course designer tacked on 2 hours because of their methods, and they're not thinking. I mean, they may be, like, very precise and trying to make it perfect, but that's one variable
no,
that can really.
you have to adapt to the market you're working. There's no doubt about it. And I always believe that it's one of the things that I teach on my on the seminars. Now, I give 1 or 2 FEI seminars a year. I always say, like the more organized you are and the more you plan yourself ahead, you're helping everybody and you're helping. That's a course designers 101. You have to keep up with the schedule and you have to be do your adjustments or anything on that. But there's a lot of people that like started with one style of course design and they cannot do that, and unfortunately that's going to help. Like you said, they're great course designers, they're amazing course designers. They might not get the same market opportunities because they are not adapt to the to many of the shows you have, and
Well, it's sort of like a little mini version of being a manager at an event because when you make the mistakes, let's say when a course designer makes mistakes and stuff like that, and then going back and fixing it and listening to the riders and things like that, you have to sift through all the things that people see to
absolutely,
you. And you have to do
absolutely,
what's best for people, for the event as a whole or the class as a whole and everything like that. And I think that that's a testament to a really good course designer. Um, Regardless of what the course designer's reaction is if you see it in the results. You see them go back, make their little bit of adjustments in the future classes and everything. Um, and it's really, really important, to be adaptable, and I think that that's what you're describing, and it's adaptable and continuously learning because like you said, there's some course designers out there that are great course designers, but maybe they haven't adapted to the modern way, or maybe they haven't course designed many big box horse shows where pace matters and that kind of thing. Whether you're setting a 10-11 jump course or a 14 or 15 jump course adds 20, 30 seconds onto every round. Like this kind of thought process when the flow of the horse show matters and the success of the horse show matters in that way, it does translate to the exhibitor experience because, people don't wanna be competing till 7 PM, and part of that is the event's fault because they have a lot of people competing, but, there's other little factors, like I said, the in-gate organization
Yep.
can play a factor, the course designer organization can play a factor. I had, back in the day, some experiences I'll describe in course designers, and I definitely absolutely won't name names or anything like that, but, years ago, I had an event where we had a lot of rounds in one, Grand Prix qualifier, and I think it was like 80 plus in the class, and we ended up only having 3 clear, and I when I looked down the list, I think we had like 20 to 30 retirements, and I remember, like, seeing the horses, like, deflated as the course went on and lost confidence, and we had a lot of top caliber horses in that class, and I remember thinking to myself, like, "This is not okay," you know? And, speaking with the course designer and him having no, remorse for it or, like, willingness to fix it later on in the weekend and everything, like, it really affected me. It really affected me, and from that point on, I was like, you know, I'm sticking to what I know and going with the course designers that I know I can trust, that I can communicate with, that I can have a real conversation with, and then also the riders can do that too. And it's also a course designer providing reassurance and safety to their horses and their clients and everybody, and have being amenable to those things is just so critical to making sure that the week goes well.
No, absolutely. I think it goes a lot with experience. Not only. I mean, we can always have a. It's a very, as you know well, it's a very fine line between a very tough course, the correct course, and a easier course. Especially the higher the level is going, the that line is getting thinner and thinner. So. Um, we can always have a competition that was a little bit too easy or a little bit too hard.
Sure.
I think the what helps with experience is that you're gonna first you can realize that yourself. Second, you're understanding that you're gonna have to listen to management and to the riders and to the your customers in the end, but also you develop your skin grows a little thicker, and then you also start learning who are you going to listen or what you're going to listen. And I think it goes as managers as well. You know exactly who's going to come and complain about something or who's going to do
Sure.
something. And with the experience, you learn how to deal with people. And like you say, like you're there in the end. Of course, we want to promote the sport, and we try to hold the sport to the highest level every time. But it goes a lot with like you said, the customer experience. So you really have to work with that. It's very important that the customers understand that, and always comes with a respectful approach. Like I think most of the course designers that I know are very willing to adjust and to answer to questions or everything. But it helps a lot when people comes with respect to us to request that. That
Yeah.
helps a lot.
I remember it's funny because, you at my first rated horse show ever, you were my first course designer. You're my choice number
We
1.
remember. Yep.
You We remember that was a dramatic week. You know, we had a 3-star event back in 2015. It was at, um, my old farm here in Kentucky, and, I don't know, you know, I've mentioned it on podcast episodes before, but we tried to put in a grass field, for everybody, and it was grass the year before, but we had a horrible winter, and it was not grass for the event. A lot of factors went into it. We ended up putting a half an inch of sand on the arena
Mhm.
on Friday evening. It was a 3-day horse show at that time. You were the course designer. We had top riders there. I mean, with their best horses, right? Because, you know, I was trying to put on a whole new concept of horse show here in the States, and I think we were successful at that. And I think we were successful at pivoting of dealing with the variables that we had, but it was not ideal. It was not good. The ground was not good. We had a lot of things riding against us, and you were the course designer. And honestly, I can remember you saving the show. I remember thinking to myself on Sunday in the
It's
Grand
a
Prix,
good team effort. Yeah.
I believe you had 9 clear in the Grand Prix. We had 30 something in it. And I remember thinking to myself, like, how did this guy at this level get 9 clear with the ground this bad? Didn't hurt anyone. Didn't hurt
It's
anyone.
good
No
show,
no
worked out well,
horses
yeah.
ended up slipping, no horses ended up getting hurting, no riders. But that really shaped the way, you know, you had a big hand in shaping the way I viewed course designers and the importance of course designers because you know me, like, I'm very outspoken. I always
Mhm.
come to you with my opinion. You've told me in the past, we'll get into that. Yes, no, maybe I like
Yep.
your idea. I don't like your idea. Give me some space, you know, but like in the end, that did because I'm a writer and I've
Yep.
dealt with those things and I was always the professional writer that came to the course designer and had those conversations. And that was really important to me to take into the management role. And because I think so highly of course designers and how much it shapes a horse show. But I remember you literally you had a major hand in shaping the way I view and trust course designers
It's good
because
to hear.
I don't like to give
We
course
adapt,
designers
yeah.
a second chance when something is so extreme, you know? But when you leave an impression like you did on me in that first event, you know, that gains the ultimate trust. And I knew the other variables were not good enough. And the other parts of the experience that has to be like priorities number one, two, three were not necessarily good enough. And I learned more than any other time I've ever learned out of a horse show from that first event.
That's good to hear
And,
that.
you know, the course designers was the course you were the course designer, and it had a huge factor in if I had a bad course designer, you know, unlike yourself, or if I had or or even if you did a bad job on that week,
Yep.
my trajectory in running equestrian events would have been completely different. I mean, maybe people if horses got hurt that day and everything like that, maybe I wouldn't have had another chance, you know? So, course designers really make or break a horse show, and that left a crazy impression on me. I remember also, I don't know if everybody knows it out there, but Guy is the course designer of our, what was previously called the Kentucky Invitationals, now the Kentucky International CSI 5-star. It's the first year this year. We have a 5-star in Kentucky during the Defender 3-day event.
Exciting. Yeah.
We're so excited. I mean, if there's ever an event in America that deserves to be a 5-star that's not, it's this one, right? I
Yep.
mean, it's always felt like a 5-star from year
Absolutely.
1.
From
10,
everybody. It's,
12,000
yep.
people. I mean, they're just in my opinion, I'm biased too, but I don't think that there's a Grand Prix that can be duplicated like that in America
It is really amazing.
because the atmosphere. So Guy has been the course designer of my choice for that event since its inception. I think our first year was 2017, something like that. I remember the first year that we did that, and I'm following you around doing the checks for the course walks like I always do, just kind of like, you know, having my put my 2 cents in there, and I'm like, "Well, why'd you do that, and why'd you do this?" And you're like, "I think you told me to leave you alone and let you do your job." And I was like,
I don't remember that.
Yes, you did. I remember specifically
But
about
in a very nice way, I did that.
you were direct. I was a little shocked. You gave my directness back to me because
Okay.
I remember it being a skinny. It was on the lake side of the arena. You
Mhm.
had it 3 white poles skinny, and I remember you checking it, and you're like, "Never mind, I wanna put 12-foot poles." You changed it out to 12-foot poles, and I said to you, I said, "What are you doing? Why? That's too easy." And you're like, "Leave me alone. Let me do my job."
I don't remember
And
that, but I'll take your word for that.
well, I'll elaborate on it. You did. You told me to back off, so
Okay.
I backed off, and then, that year, yeah, I'm not gonna call it a miss, but in my opinion, I think you missed a little bit on that course because you had 14 clear out of 30,
Yeah.
and it was a winning round, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The still result of the Grand Prix was amazing, and then the next year came around, and I believe I was definitely a little bit more hesitant of giving you my 2 cents on the course, but the next year, the format was winning round. We took 10 back automatically for the jump off, so because the crowd was so amazing there, it
Mhm.
was very
Mhm.
comprehensible for them to understand what number and why they came back for the jump off. So that's why we did that format like that. And I remember, and you carry your faults. So even if there's only 5 clear, the next best 5 still come back for the jump off. And I remember the next year, you had 7 clear and 3 with a time fault out of the 10, and it literally couldn't have been more perfect, but in that course, even though it was still a 3-star at the time, I noticed you cranked the screws a little bit harder on it, and I remember you coming to me and being like, I didn't expect I thought the crowd when we had the conversation after the 2nd year, I don't know if you remember, but
Mhm.
you said to me, you actually, like you did come to me and say you were right, but you also said, "I didn't necessarily expect the crowd to have the opposite effect in the atmosphere on the horses and riders that it did." You thought it was gonna be a more difficult atmosphere for
Mhm.
those
Mhm.
riders to compete in, and instead, they jumped
Yeah.
way better,
Yeah.
and all of them rose to the occasion. So, learning what that event and the caliber of that event needed, you could see it from year 1 to 2 in that. You remember that?
No.
No.
No. I go year by year. But what I like, one of the things that go back to what you're saying about the importance of the course designer, but also on the experience of the horses and the riders. I don't think I've ever been afraid of being uh, a little bit soft when the conditions might not be ideal. Uh, Also to try to stay a little bit true to the level of the competition. Like if it is a 3-star, and I don't go too much by the prize money because there's not really a proportion. You have a qualifier with $33,000, and then you have a Grand Prix with 200. You're not going to multiply the difficulty of the course by 6. So the
Sure.
prize money imports to me, but not. And that's what riders many times say, oh, this is too much for $32,000, but you have 90 on the qualifier and you can only take 45. They're going to jump in proportion more difficult than what they do in the Grand Prix
Maybe
one
30
day.
that have been to the Olympics before
Yeah.
with their top horses. So
So I don't take the prize money literally as a very big guideline of my course design, but I do take it at some point. Like I have a concept that I wouldn't put 14 jumps if it's not X amount of money. That's a little bit my concept, but I think we, especially in America, whole America, we are not that used of having a little bit more clear rounds than we have in Europe. But the level of horses here has been increasing a lot in the past years. So
sure.
to keep having those 5 or 6 clear rounds, the courses would have to be way more extreme. And then it's not benefited. You're gonna end up with having, I don't mind a class with only 3 clears out of 80. Okay, I don't like it, but if you have 40 with one rail and you have 6
Sure.
that couldn't finish, but if you have 30, so
Yeah,
uh,
what a really good point, because when you look at and you have a conversation about did a course designer do a good job, I think at least top riders look at this, they look further down the scorecard,
the
right?
less, yeah, yeah,
And the results, and they're like, "Oh, there was 6 clear, and it seemed really hard, but let's say there was 50 in it. Wow, the course designer had 30 plus 4 falters and 10 8 falters and only 2 retirements. Like, even though the course might have been extremely hard, that sounds like an amazing course because
yes.
the overall result, not just the end
I
clears.
like to say it's an easy course to jump around, but it's a hard course to jump clear. So I like that philosophy. Everybody can go around, but it's not going to be so easy to jump clear. So normally
Totally,
that makes a very fair course for the horses.
that's a perfect way to describe it. Yeah, I never really thought of it that way, but that's definitely how I look at the results, and you're like, "Wow, did this course designer do a good job?" And you can tell through the rest of the results. Like, that's why I commented on that one time when I had the 80 plus in it and only 3 clear. I think there were like 30 retirements. It was like pretty scary, and that where was like for me, like, what's this person gonna do to correct this moving forward? And it's really, really important. But I thought people would like to hear those beginning experiences with you, and honestly, like, yeah, since the beginning, like, you really did have a big way in shaping the way I trust course designers and value that, and every time you run a horse show and you do a course, you gain a little bit more experience and everything like
Absolutely.
that. What are those you keep all your lanyards from all your horse shows? Are those
Yeah.
is that what's behind you?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. A lot of history. There's the poster from the first time I went to Bromont, and then
Wow.
one of the first ones from Wellington. Yeah, and then the
So
lanyards, the accreditations from the games and from the horse shows, and yep.
amazing. What's your I mean, well, would it be the Olympics in Rio? What's the best event you've ever course designed in your world? I know the Olympics is the holy grail for pretty much everybody in this industry, but
It's very very hard for me to say. Of course, the Olympics were like you said. It's in many ways it's the holy grail. Is the top. It was an amazing experience. I think it was a transition point of the sport, of the rules, specifically for games like that, because after that the FEI made a big change in the aspects of the competition. It used to be only meter 60, many of the competitions only 12 jumps, and after that for the WEG in 2018, and then the Olympic Games before, the height had been increased to meter 65, the number of obstacles that you're allowed to use change as well. So that that but I had a fantastic team. Everything in I mean, it was at my country, everything is last minute. So the preparation might not have been the ideal, but we all pulled it through. It was fantastic. The Pan American Games that I did after in Lima, in Peru, was a fantastic event. For me, it was, I don't know if because of the experience, also because of the conditions we had the best set of jumps that I ever had for my main events. The
where was
results
that?
were
In
that was
Lima?
in Peru, in Lima, in Peru in 2019.
Who built those jumps?
Mihai
Yeah.
Simon, like, yeah, the same one you're starting to use now, and Mihai does a great job with the jumps. And but like you said, I've been, like, the first time I did the World Cup final in Vegas, and it's gonna be, like I said, I'm part of the old guard now, which is kind of funny for me. I've never been in that position, but April now it's gonna be 20 years that I did my first World Cup final, and I had a great team with me, and a lot of support from a lot of people, and it was a incredible experience. So for me, I've been very lucky that I've done many great events, and it's very hard for me to pick up one and say, okay, this
Well,
was my best.
you described all championships, which
Yep.
are obviously the pinnacle of our sport, whether it be Pan American Games, Olympics, World Cup Finals, World
Mhm.
Championships, or WEG as it used to be. Um, you know, those I'm sure as a rider or organizer are, you know, the biggest of all of them,
The
right? But
total.
it's okay. But do you have, and don't be afraid to say it, is there an event in the past 30 years that you've built that has been outside of a championship that is your favorite show you've ever been to?
It's very, like, again,
There's
it's
gotta
very
be one that's
difficult,
come to
and
your
it's
head.
not, no, it's not, because there are so many different things, like, uh, of course, the event here in Wellington is fantastic. This year is going to be the 10th year that I built the main event, the last event of the season, and now Wellington is my home, it's my hometown. My kid, the second kid, was born here. This is home for us, so it's quite amazing to. So there's that part that is to be home and go to an event like that is great. Uh, the show in Kentucky where we have that crowd is also like so everything that's involved with that show, being the cross country right there that they jump over there, and then the crowd that we have. The Helsinki Horse Show that it's a World Cup qualifier in for the Western European League that I've been doing as well for 10 years now, and that was the biggest challenge for me because it was the smallest ring. It's only 32 by 62. It's like a little bit over 100 by 200. That was always a big challenge, but a very good, like, I have very many horse shows that I've been working for many years, that in one way or the other they are special to go to. It's very hard to say, okay, you there's one that I really enjoy. Like, there's so many different things that I enjoy and that's what I try to do. Like, when I go to a horse show, I try to adapt to what they have that week and say, okay, this week there's this and this and this that is the positive
You're giving
aspect.
a very politically correct answer.
But it's true.
But do
Like,
you
it's
there
true.
a horse show are there events that you've been to and you're like, "I'm not going back?" There's
It's been a long no, but it's been a long time that I've been lucky enough to make my calendar with events that I have good conditions to work, that I get a good relationship with the management, and I've been lucky enough to keep repeating these events for many years. So now I'm gonna be politically correct, and I said the only thing is, I've been happy. If you look at my calendar, it's pretty much the same every year. Like, there's not many new
there's an
events
easy
we
way to
have.
say, "No, I'm not available," if there's an event that you don't wanna do at a
But
particular
but also, yes, but also I'm very, as you know well, family starts playing a very important part in our life, and as lucky as I am, as you are, to have a wife that is part of the industry and that understand the industry. uh, I really try to make, so there are some days that are not normally not negotiable, that I won't be available, and I really try not to be nowadays more than 2 weeks in a row out of home,
the
most
travel's gotta
likely
be
at a
so
home.
hard.
Yes, it is crazy hard, and
You
uh
must have a lot of sky miles, though.
I use them all. I use them all to get my upgrades and travel a little bit better. But even though, like, it's just, and I try living in the US if I can, to go home Sunday night, even if, and leaving Tuesday. But you're at least, one day with your kids and with your wife. So that that makes it in one way more shapes a little bit the calendar in the way that there's not that many openings for new events, because I said, okay, I do the 13 weeks here in Wellington from January to March. Then I take a big break in April, start again at the Kentucky International, and then go from there. But then that comes
So that's good
it.
that you plan that time. You plan that time with your family and everything like that. That's like everybody in this industry because
Important.
hypothetically, you could go to 2 shows a week for 52 weeks a year and never find time to slow down and be home and be with the family and everything. And,
Yeah, no, it's
course
hard.
designers or even officials of events in general, like traveling to horse shows, flying every single week to different events, there's a reason why big box horse shows and circuits have kind of taken shape here in America because, people want to kind of stay put in one place. And unfortunately, it kind of detracts from singular, unique type events, standalone events, because people do wanna, like, hunker down into one place for a longer period of time because of the family aspect and other variants,
Absolutely.
for sure. It's definitely a big factor, but, I agree. Alright, well, I was hoping you were gonna give me a little bit more direct answers on what's your favorite and which ones you're not going back to and why. I wasn't gonna make you n name names, but, um, the also, like, there's, like, 2 things that I think also probably shape the way you factor into your courses and the success of the week as a whole from designing, and it's like jump materials, which you mentioned. Mihai is our new partner for 2025 and beyond for now, has built the last several Olympics and major championships.
Mhm.
Really
Mhm.
special designs and jumps and
Yep.
3D jumps. So you have the materials that you see at events and jump crew. Can you touch on for us those 2 areas? Because I know for me, it's like anything else. My a lot of my events are we have highest level. We have 2 5 stars this year. We have World Cup finals next year, which is a championship as an organizing group. So, the materials really play a huge factor in, I'm sure, how you do your go through your motions and design your courses. For me, I knew going into our events, a lot of our events are like 2 star level, 3 star level, a majority of them, which is the general, you know, entry level FEI type international events and everything like that. But our events have always been pretty special and unique for the lower level internationals where the competition is actually pretty high for that level. So the materials for us has played a huge factor in making sure they're really delicate and 10-foot pole, more 10-foot poles and 12-foot poles. So like you said, you can have more rails here and there at the level, making the difficulty higher, even though the star level isn't so high. And then also the jump crew, like anything else, you have to have, just really quality people doing that role and helping. Do those two the biggest factors for you or?
So so there are two things that I think that there are some things that are important to say. The system of running horse shows, if you compare North America and Europe, are very different on the way, like specifically for that aspect. That in Europe you have a lot more volunteers working, and you have a lot more volunteer course designers assistants. So you go to an event there, you're going to have 3 or 4 licensed course designers, might be national, might be two or level three, FEI. You have the assistants, and then sometimes you have professional jump crew, but many times you're going to get volunteers that are just part
Sure.
of the show. Like, for instance, the Helsinki Horse Show, I have one level three, one level two course designer assistants, and then we have some national course designers, and that the rest of the jump crew, it's all volunteer, like in many shows. Here in North America, you have normally a very professional jump crew that knows not so much about course design, but know exactly what to do as long as the course designer tell them correctly what to do. So many years ago, like one of the first shows I designed in Canada was the Collingwood Horse Show in Ontario, that was organized by Olympians, like by Jay Hayes, a good friend. And I did many years his horse shows, and when he was like at the end of his organizer career, let's put it this way, one of the last shows that he didn't get had that many sponsorship, and he said, uh, if you have to choose from the course designer's point of view, what would be your pick? Like, let's say we are running this show on a tight budget. Would it be the jumps? Would it be the decoration? Would it be the crew? Would it be? I said, Jay, I know that the correct answer would be the footing, because of course you have to have good footing to have a competition. But from a course designer's point of view, the most important thing for me is the jump crew, because even with a bad footing, if I have a good jump crew, we can move the jumps fast enough. And he kind of laughed and joked, and he provided me good jump crew. So uh, there's it's absolutely fundamental for us to be able to do our job properly. It makes our life way easier if you have a good jump crew. I always like to teach the jump crew. I'm always teaching them how to tape a line or how to, and I am very organized. Because I'm in some way I'm a lazy person. So the more I work in the paper, the more I produce a good build plan or I give them correct instructions, I'm gonna have to work less. So uh, I think like jump crew is for us when you're at a horse show and you got there and you say, okay, I know these guys are good. Sometimes, and it doesn't even if they are not that experienced, but they have the right attitude, the right, like they are eager to work and to learn, we can get by. So that's very important on your working personnel, like on your team. Not many shows here you have an assistant. You have the luxury here to have an assistant. So you really trust that jump crew that you're going to say, hey, reverse that oxer and go two up, and they know what they're doing. But it's very, very important. And then when you go to the material, it's like when you have high end jumping, like high level jumping, it's nowadays it's very important. It's not only a question of having a 3 meter material, 3.5 meter material. I think variety is very important. You have to keep that in mind, especially if of course, you're in a small arena. The more 10 foot you have is better. If you have on a big arena like in Kentucky, you need a little bit bigger jumps. Otherwise, also your ring doesn't look uh,
Full enough.
set
Yeah.
full enough. And but
What about like colors and fillers and all those things? Like like it's called course design, right?
yeah, no,
Like
absolutely.
does that
Like
do those play a factor in the why you choose certain jumps in certain positions and everything?
for sure, do. I can say for myself and most of my colleagues, we first, uh, you have like the most obvious way of making a course harder is the dimension of the jump, the height and the spread, the distances in between jobs that are the questions you ask. But then you start with the material. And I don't have and never saw enough data to say certain color is harder than the other one. I know people say, oh, the white and yellow is harder than the black and white, or
Yeah,
I
but for
never
me,
had.
that's the I've always heard that.
Yeah,
And when you put a course designer puts three white poles, big square ox or a
no, no.
short
So
term with a Liverpool underneath it.
no, no. So I'm starting with the color itself, right? The color, like that one color would be harder than the other one. I don't have data for that. But of course, with the experience is that striped poles are easier. They're more contrast, more reference. They call more the attention of the horse than a solid color rail. So in that, that is totally correct. If we want to make a jump a little bit harder without making it bigger, we can put a solid rail. If you want to make it even harder, then you put the solid rail with the Liverpool, and
Do you
then we
think
have.
that that's do you think that that's harder for the horse, or do you think that that's harder for the rider?
No, I think it's harder for the horse because, and the other thing that I say about the collars is that at vet school I learned that horses don't see collars because of the way their retina is made. Okay, then you get into to riding, and then you see, okay, maybe they don't see the red as we see or the yellow as we see, but they certainly see the contrast, see the brightness,
The
see
shades.
some stuff, spooks more one horse than the other. So maybe they don't see the their eyes not exactly the same as ours in seeing the blue as blue or the yellow as yellow, but they definitely see something. And then for sure, striped rails make the horses more aware than the solid rails, and then what we call the pinstripe, the horizontally striped poles that we call the mafia poles for a reason. They give a little bit of the depth perception, and they play a little bit with that, and they can be even harder than the
Sure.
solid stripe, so the solid color. So uh to make it very simple, striped poles are easier, solid poles in the middle, pinstripe, horizontally striped poles even harder. So when you as a rider see something like that, you say, okay, I need to make my horse more aware. The horse needs to be that is gets less the attention of the horse. And then if there's a then we go to the components. If we put the plank in the bottom, the horse are gonna look there. If we put the Liverpool, those things we play, and then we play a little bit with the aesthetics part of it, and then trying to do the color coordination on the course to make it
Is that
pretty as well.
aesthetics is you mean for the riders and the
Oh
event as a
yes.
whole and
Yeah.
stuff like it?
Yeah.
The rest doesn't really play too much of a factor in it. Yeah, because recently it's become way more popular to have three-dimensional jumps and these big, designs and everything like that, whereas before the jumps were more cookie cutter,
Yeah.
one color, solid color, two
The
color.
rest, yeah.
And and now, like, in order to be a really high caliber event, like, you have to bring out all the stops with the decoration and the quality of the
Decoration is
jumps and
very
everything like
important,
that.
like the decoration of the jumps. I think because it helps to give, of course, reference for the horses, but keeps also helps also maintain the roots of the sport that it was started
Natural.
at the at natural at the open field. So if you have nice decoration on the jumps, you are making it, like resembling a little bit of the origins of the sport. So I think that is
That's a really good point that I never thought of it that way because, really for me in the beginning, I thought like, well, if we get these nice, amazing jumps, like let's go minimal on the decor design, because it's another element of work and things like that, and I see a lot of these shows going extreme with the design next to the jumps. I'm not one of them. I don't go extreme with the design in the natural aspect of it with plants and stuff like that. I obviously do it, but I don't go crazy with it. But that's a really good point you made that I'd never thought about it traditionally in our sport. It comes from a natural place. So I can see that aspect of wanting to add design, and not to mention it adds like depth perception for the horse. The more
I think so.
built
It
around just
helps absolutely, absolutely. But I think, and of course, it goes from event to event. If you have a championship like you have coming next year, that is definitely something important, and it doesn't need to be massive, but it needs to be there needs to be something there, and I think it helps make the connection from the jump to the footing to, like the thing looks like a whole. I like a clean design, and I like all those things, but I also I don't like very much when you look at something and say, we're missing something here, and we don't know. Like we are lucky that many years at the Kentucky International, because they have the 3-day event, that we have plenty of decoration, and in a ring like that, it looks always looks very good. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
if you have like hunter jumps are a good example of
Hmm.
this, because a lot of the hunter jumps and courses being built in the past, they they're very simple jumps. They're very
Yeah.
basic jumps. So you put a lot of these florals and these trees and these plants and everything, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, those jumps look amazing. But in reality, the jumps themselves are very simple. But that's where for me, um, when you have these amazing 3D jumps that are really the focal point, and these designs have become more elaborate and intricate and special in themselves, I don't necessarily think you need
No,
a crazy
absolutely.
amount of design.
No,
If you have
no, no,
simple
no. I agree. It was, but then you can go jump by jump, and then you go and you make like something like a finishing of the jump is the footing is there, all dragged and beautiful. You put the jump, and then you do a little fine tuning around, and you put something that to integrate that and say, okay, now it's. But of course, that's a personal opinion,
it's all
but I
personal
agree. But I agree 100%. If you have a magnificent jump, you're not gonna hide it between three stall like the one you have behind you. You don't want to hide the jump. You want to show the jump. Same thing as a sponsor jump. You have to be careful that the logo and the brand, everything is showing up, right?
it was interesting actually, speaking of that, being an organizer and like noticing these little details of everything. Like when I'm watching a live stream of an event or something like that, like I notice different things because I'm looking for like things to learn and things how I could do differently with my events and what I like and what I don't like. And watching the Olympics this year in Paris, I was pretty shocked actually. Like you just mentioned, like depends on maybe the caliber of the event. If it's like a championship or
Hmm.
monster
Hmm.
ring or a big 5-star, you go extra on the decor and the design and everything because maybe the event can afford it or it just warrants it. Well, at the Olympics this year, I thought the jumps were another level. Mihai did them unbelievably
Hmm.
intricate designs that were very traditional to to France and Paris specifically. And then I looked at the decor and I was really underwhelmed by the decor at Paris. I couldn't believe it actually. The first few days, the decor was just a couple of ferns and maybe a hydrangea plant, and it was so basic, and I didn't know if that was on purpose, and I asked around and everything about those details, but I really think, uh, it looked the setting was not to be duplicated. It was unbelievable at
Yep.
Versailles. I mean,
Yep.
the whole thing was amazing. But me being putting my organizer hat on, I'm looking at this next to these jumps and thinking to myself, wow, they must not have thought this one through enough. I don't know.
I don't. The Olympics this year that I was last year that I was technical delegate was very interesting, different approach for me. But I don't know if I was worried about so many things. I didn't notice that we were lacking decoration. For sure, the jumps were like you say, they were so special itself that they didn't need it so much. Uh, I didn't. I'm gonna look again now that you mentioned because I really didn't feel that there were not enough, but maybe there
Well,
was
I don't
something
remember not enough. It just didn't seem
too much.
elaborate enough.
Like when we did it in Rio, we didn't have the jump. The budget was completely different. We didn't have the jumps with the quality
Yeah.
there was in I had in Lima or in Paris, but the decoration was very typical Brazilian plants and everything, but like very there was a lot that had to kind of make up for a lot of the we were missing sometimes on the jumps, but uh, it's. I mean, I really don't. I'm gonna look again because now I got curious about
Yeah, no, I
experience.
just
Yeah.
especially the first couple days, I think they ramped it up at the end. I remember I can't remember who I asked what happened with there was something with the plants or maybe it rained a lot and there was an issue somebody had told me and that was the reason, but I don't know,
Yeah.
it just didn't seem like coordinated with the colors and the flowers and Those the jump,
Yeah, but like
which
there's some stuff that for me like it's interesting, and like there was if you was talking about colors, and then of course it's personal taste. We had a lot of combinations there, like doubles and triples that were not or not the same color of the poles, or some that were like completely different, A and B and C, and that's an option of the course designer. I personally, in this way, I'm a little bit more traditionalist, that like you're gonna have more or less the same thing on the to make the combination look like one jump. We had some combinations that they look at like two jumps, two separate jumps, put together at a one stripe
sure
distance. But of course there is the project itself was fantastic by Santiago Bordeaux and Mihai and his team, and that was
is
it's a
no,
very
like I said,
interesting
the jumps are
process.
amazing, but I definitely go back and look and see what you think, because I definitely think from I know ramping it up through the week is definitely important, and that your the finale and the final and everything, you give your biggest show, and it got better, but I thought the decor was definitely lacking for me in Paris on being elaborate enough compared to everything else that was
Yep.
so incredible. That was just again opinion,
Mhm. Mhm.
and that's coming from somebody that doesn't like a lot of decor. I just
Yep.
thought for
Yep.
Olympics, it's like, okay, you got to pull out all the stops, but that was my thing. Um, Couple other questions I'm gonna put you a little bit on the spot for, while we wind this conversation down. It's been amazing. Um,
Mhm.
Everybody, I feel like there's a general rule of thumb, like, but for you, when you're designing, do you ever think like, do you have a goal of what's the perfect number clear?
So I always say that for me, the perfect number of clear is 8 clears.
Yep,
If I have 20 on a class, if I have 40 in a class, if I have 45 in a class,
always 8 is the right
I like for
why
me
8?
because I think let's be a little bit more specific on the way that let's talk a normal Grand Prix that you're gonna have between 35 and 45 riders. You make the first round interesting enough because the clear rounds are not coming so easily. So the spectators are really paying attention to see if this or that competitor is gonna come out clear. But it's still so it makes the first round more interesting, but it still gives enough riders in the jump off that they can risk, and we have a competitive jump off. No, sometimes you have three or four, and then the first one had a rail, the second one had a rail, the third, and then last one can go for an easy clear. So eight, and I mean, like I said, for the course designers know better than one that there's no way of predict that. But whenever I joke and I have this among the people that I work is that eight for me is a perfect number, but it depends a lot on the competition,
Well,
as
it's
you know,
interesting
or
because
the
I think that's a general rule of thumb. I mean, you're
Mhm.
obviously not alone in that, like, organizers and course designers for the same reasons. I think always the goal is 8. You made a comment earlier, though, that the people in Europe are more used to more clear rounds
Yeah, no,
than they are here in North America.
yeah.
Do you think it's because the course designers do something different? Do you think there's a higher quantity of caliber of horses and riders over there that can jump the same level course? What's the reason for that?
I think I think there's a higher number of high caliber horses in an event. Uh, so I think that makes in order to get the 8 clears, you every time a first round would have to be a very, very difficult and technical course that might be too much for the horses if you lined up all the
Sure.
shows that they do during the year. I don't think, especially on the 5-star events, I think the level of the competitors are more even in Europe than here in North America. You have amazing top 10 riders here on some 5-star events, but then you have a lot of lower ranked and less experienced riders here. So uh, I
But
think
I
that
think as a community, they like you said, I agree with your statement, like, people expectations here in America or North America, they don't I think if you have over 10 clear, it's kinda looked down on or over 12 clear, where in Europe, I see a lot of World Cup qualifiers with 15, 16, 17 clear, and this is a
I
normal
think, and we have another rule of thumb that it's nice that, let's say, normally the competition has prize money to the 12th place. So ideally, nobody has to jump off and not get at least some kind of prize money. That will be ideal. But I think the feeling I get is that many times they trade, okay, we have a few more clears, but the first rounds are more fair to everybody and for our
Sure.
horses. But but again, I can understand if you're a top 10 competitor with a fantastic horse and you jump in a 5 star, and here that the level is a little bit more different. Uh, then you're not so happy if you have 12 or 15 clears. But I don't think it's on the 5 star. I kind of agree with that mentality. If you go and look, okay, this is the field of the class, and we have a lot of less experienced horse riders and horses, you're, you're going to get 4 or 5 or 6 clears. But many times here for the 3 star and the 4 star competition, that are stepping stones to the 5 star, that a lot of riders are not so experienced. You're gonna have to deal if you build the regular 3 star meter 50 Grand Prix, because the 3 star you can have a meter 60 Grand Prix, as we know, on a 3 star. It's not only that counts, but um, if you have a normal 3 star competition and you have a few more tiers, but you're fair to everybody on the field, I think it's better for the sport in the long run. Uh, and you just get used to it. Like, it's a 3 star, you have the, all of a sudden you have 15 really good riders that are jumping that 3 star, but you have other 35 that are really 3 star level. So you're going to end up with a little bit more clear. And in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with it. Sometimes I take a little bit of the heat. Oh no, it's too easy, or it's too, I said, well, but it's the 3 star level, like you have to. And we're not like, you've run like the Kentucky International as a 3 star, but at a meter 60, because it was a two competition horse show, was a different 3 star. But like the same thing as the 3 stars we have here in Wellington during the season, they are very high level.
Totally. Yeah, it's a good point. This year we had a 5 star in LA, and a friend of ours, Anderson Lima, built that event for us.
Mhm,
And we were celebrating after because he he called it double eights. He was
mhm,
happy, with the result because we had 75 in the qualifier for the Grand
mhm,
Prix, and he had 8 clear, and we had I think it was a 39 or 40 in the Grand Prix because we had to qualify for it, and 8 clear for that. So,
mhm.
for those type of high caliber events, like
Very good result. No
8
doubt.
is definitely the result that, you strive to, because generally that number is gonna probably keep the majority happy, majority safe,
Yeah.
and have an end good result. Um Another thing that it comes to mind for me is do you see do you see a lot of cheating with the riders when you're building courses and making tweaks? Do you have a process that you go back and check the courses before the a Grand Prix starts or anything like that? Because I I've witnessed a lot of it.
Well, I try. No, honestly, I unless it's something that somebody brings to my mind, I prefer to believe that everybody is playing by the same rules that I played my whole life, and I'm, like,
Yeah.
there's no for me, there's no. I mean, there's no. I don't know what's the saying in English, but like, if you cheat, like, you're not never gonna be a winner, in my opinion. And I know there's a lot of things coming up that you might, but like and that's the thing I want my kids to know, like you don't cheat, like you work hard and you go and you do, and because there's no, but I've seen it done. I don't go looking for it because like they're not in theory cheating myself. They are cheating they are competitors, they are colleagues. So
Sure.
I don't worry about it because we have so
Well, the
much
thing
more
I
to
don't
worry
understand
about.
about it is, and I'll let people know what I'm describing because people are probably wondering, like, how can you cheat on a course design or anything like that? I'm not talking about course designers cheating. I'm talking about exhibitors. Um, and it's funny because I always wondered why a rider or a team member of a rider would adjust the course in a way that might benefit them or something without anybody noticing. And that's what I'm describing because it would benefit everybody, maybe necessarily depending on what they do. But I was in Omaha at the last World Cup finals here in America. We have World Cup finals in Fort Worth next April. But I was watching in Omaha, and I was actually sitting in the hospitality area at my table, just spectating and watching and learning because I want to go to all the World Cup finals leading up to our World Cup final next year, so I can learn all the little aspects. And right before the it must have been they cleared the course walk. Well, right before they cleared the course walk, me and somebody else I was sitting with watched a rider adjust a standard, kick a standard in a certain way and completely change the width of a big square oxer coming out of a line. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it, and nobody saw it. I watched everybody exit the ring. The course designers are all lined up at the in gate getting ready for the first horse, and I literally frantically from the stands texted. I knew a couple of the course designers. Alan Wade was the course designer, or no, maybe it was Bernardo. Bernardo Cabral was course designer and his team.
I
And
think
I had
Alan was technical delegate. Yeah.
yeah, Alan was there, and then also Nick Granite was an assistant and everything like that, and I couldn't get a hold of any of them, and I texted, Nick, actually, and he saw my message, and literally, they're 2 minutes about to go with the national anthem, and he goes running in and he adjusted it and remeasured it and making sure, but it was, like, dramatic. I mean, it was, like, 8 inches different and tweaked, and I that was really, as a rider, I kinda, like, heard and knew, people did these kinda things or adjusted the cups or put something underneath the pole or these kinda details, but, like, I couldn't believe it on such a huge scale, somebody would do something
It's
like that, and it was
it's
gonna
it's a
go
sad
this
sad story for sure. I mean, I just find it very sad because
yeah,
what's your merit in the end? Like but like I've heard it. I've seen once in a show in Brazil, or twice, and I caught them and I like changing the height or something, and I said, "Hey." Then they got in when they were in. I put the jump back, and I was inside the ring when the rider was there, and I said, "Hey, now I changed the distance of the combination, okay? After you walk, but just for you." Anyway, I mean, it's a sad story for sure, and I mean, it doesn't for me, it doesn't make any sense. Like
I
I like one of the things that I know that for sure I built here is the respect of the horses and of the riders and the establishment. And there's no point on cheating. You make a mistake, you own your mistake,
yeah.
and you have your wins and your losses, and you go with that. But like, I don't think there's any. It's very sad that story is very sad.
People are always trying to get ahead
Shouldn't be true.
in the wrong ways
Yeah.
and all of it. It's yeah, but I thought that would I wonder if that's like a commonplace or
Like
you've seen that a lot.
I had pressure sometimes give courses from championships, and I just said no, I don't do that.
What do you mean?
And
Like before?
like somebody would say from one of the championships I built, they say, "Oh, like what's the triple or what's gonna be?" And I said, like doesn't matter. You're gonna see it when you see it, and it's the same thing. Like it's the same for everybody, and that's the way it should be. Like it's part of the sport. Like you only know what you're gonna have to deal with, and it's one of the best things of our sport that the riders only see the courses and 2 hours before the championship, and the horses only when they go in. That's one of the most fascinating things about our sport, and makes it very unique. There's no really way of practicing what you're gonna say. And that tests a lot of the horsemanship of the riders and trainers, how they can train their horses to deal with to prepare. Like that goes way back to the roots, and to how they can treat their horses, prepare their horses, train their horses, because of course the courses that they're going to say are different, but they follow, of course, a logic and a pattern,
Sure.
and the questions are within a frame that they know. So
Yeah,
that's
training your
part
horse
of
to
the
see
sport,
every single variable that could be
yeah,
presented in a
and
course.
to be able to jump what's there, and to respond to the rider's commands. Like that's the ultimate task that you're giving there. It's that the horse answer to your commands, and the way you prepare your horse to get there, you gave him the training that he is physically able to do what you're asking him to do.
It's also like learning. That's a really good point. Like I think the top level riders in the sport, or no matter what level you're at, if you're like a real student of the sport and you're constantly learning and noticing everything at the events that can help you do better and help you prepare better. A lot of course designers, like everything else, they have a unique style, you know? And if you're a really high level rider and everything, you might know that course designer sets things a certain way, certain style, to where
Train like
that can you can train like that, and rather than asking to cheat and say, "Hey, get into this an advantage," or making these adjustments. So it's really, you know, interesting to see all the little variables that go into it. And that's why course designers and course designing in general is such a vital portion of equestrian events. And it really does make or break a horse show, having a quality course designer that cares about all these little details and variables. Guy, I can't thank you so much for joining us
Thank
today.
you very much for finding.
Podcast. It's been an awesome conversation, as it always is, and hopefully we'll have you on here again. And Guy, your course design or Kentucky International
Looking
coming
forward
up
to it.
at the end of April. It's
This year.
literally bigger and better than ever. Hopefully, we have the best riders in the world, and put on a real show for that incredible crowd. Thank you so much again.
Thank you
And
very
for
much,
everybody,
Derek. Oh, thanks
thank you
everyone.
everybody for tuning into Horse Show 360 podcast. Don't forget, you can tune in on all podcast platforms, iHeart, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, as well as click that subscribe button on Horse Show 360 podcast YouTube channel, and follow us on Instagram and TikTok, Horse Show 360. Thank you guys again for joining us on episode 14 on course designers and why they are so vital to equestrian events. We hope you tune in, and see you next time. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.